your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News Weekend Edition with Jeanette Roche.
Hello, thanks for joining us. We've been very fortunate to have our Bridge City News crew on the ground in Ottawa this past week, and the content they've been able to generate has been amazing and touching to so many. We begin today's show with a look at the situation in Ottawa. Here is David Craig to talk about how things looked Saturday morning.
Hey, well, good morning, everyone. You guys are doing well. It's just before noon here in Ottawa. As you can see, these crowds are growing a lot right now. There's a band behind us. They're playing a bunch of worship tunes right now. Giant crowds gathering here at the nation's capital. Things are peaceful. Things are happy. Lots of families. Lots of people rejoicing and partying. Lots of different contingents going around here. It's a cold day, but the sun's out, so it feels really beautiful. It's going to be interesting to see how this weekend develops. But the mood around here is incredibly joyful. People are happy to be here. I'll give you a quick look to see what's going on.
Ooh, sounds like they had a bit of audio issues there. Well, Saturday was an eventful day in Ottawa, and we'll show you more of that in just a moment. But first, we bring you a touching conversation BCN video journalists Jeremy Prest and David Craig captured on Friday evening with a Manitoba resident who traveled to Ottawa because he saw certain Canadians were really headed for trouble. Here is that Friday night conversation.
I'm here with my friend Dustin Weeb. I've just been talking a little bit with him about what's been going on, his experience here at the Freedom Convoy. He's got a story that you guys have to hear, so listen up to this one.
So there was a group of about 10 guys from Quebec that came to the truck, and I guess maybe one of them knew English, the rest were all French. And I told them when I saw Quebec was in trouble, that's when I jumped in my truck. Because in Quebec, you can't get groceries, you can't get a organ transplant, you can't go to the pharmacy if you don't have the vaccine. And when we saw that Quebec was in trouble, if Quebec goes down, Canada goes down. And these guys were getting hit hard. These guys, the one guy said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." And they walked about 50 feet away, and then once the translation got back to French to the 10, they came in, they ran back to the truck and they started kissing me on the hand and they said, "Please, please, please don't leave." And they said, "I will never, ever be a separatist again because of you. I will buy a Canadian flag the first time. I have never owned a Canadian flag, but because of you, I am Canadian today."
Wow, that's awesome. What part of Canada are you from?
Southern Manitoba.
So, what was the original reason why you came over here?
Because Quebec are fighters, but when they got hit the hardest and they got hit first, that's what's going to happen to the rest of us. If we would have waited 6 months to do this, it would have been too late. And we're not leaving. I'm not coming back home until my country's back. That's what I'm doing. I'm staying here. I have no GoFundMe money. I'm doing this all out of pocket. If I have to finance my own war, that's how this is.
Thank you, man. I appreciate your time and letting us know. That's a powerful story there.
Something the team in Ottawa has had trouble finding this past week, believe it or not, was people who disagreed with the Freedom Rally. Well, Saturday morning, they seemed to come out in full force. The police presence increased to stand between protesters and counter-protesters. David and Jeremy were challenged by the difference they noted between the two crowds. Here is David Craig to discuss what they saw.
As you can see, there's about 40 to 50 police officers right here in front of Centre Hall, almost acting as a barricade between the crowd, which is an anti-protest, a couple hundred strong. They're chanting things like "Go home, put on your mask, leave our city." On this other side, you've got other people from Freedom Convoy or people in support of the Freedom Convoy. As you can see, most of them are actually passing through. Not a lot of them are sticking around in this area in front of City Hall. Just want to let you know, as I walked in front of the counter protest, I had a couple of police officers behind me, honestly watching out for my safety, just making sure I'm good, because I was trying to talk to the crowd to find someone who would talk to the camera. It took a while. Most people said no, or they started chanting or throwing snowballs or blocks of ice towards me. But finally, I did talk to a man named Art, who is a level-headed guy, and he talked to the camera, gave his view. So I'm very grateful for that, because we're just trying to get all the voices out as best as we can. Today, there's more people that are showing up who are against the Freedom Convoy, and we'll keep those coming to you as well. But this is a good visual as to what's happening behind me. Just want to give you an idea here at City Hall, Freedom Convoy 2022 in Ottawa.
When we come back, we will have that conversation between David and Art, plus much more. Stay with us. Welcome back. As we mentioned before the break, our two VJs in Ottawa wanted to find a counter voice to this protest. Both were able to secure a few conversations, and we wanted to share the opposing side to the Freedom Rally. Here is the conversation David Craig had with a man named Art in front of Ottawa City Hall.
I'm here with Art, who has joined hundreds of people in front of the City Hall here to protest the Freedom Convoy that is going on. Art, would you be kind enough and tell me why have you guys gathered?
We came a couple hours to come and support the people that are protesting against the occupation of downtown Ottawa. Before I say anything else, I want to thank the police officers for being here. Sorry, I'm not talking to you while I'm freezing.
You're all good, man. You're doing great.
So we believe that they have come, they've made their point, it's time for them to go. And mostly I'm here to show that there's a lot of Canadians that don't support what they're doing.
Okay.
And that's why I'm here, and that's why many people are here.
Thank you so much. And also a shout out, the police officers are here doing a great job helping out so that everything is peaceful, everyone's raising their voices. What do you hope to see accomplished with you guys gathering today?
I want our government to take some leadership. Doug Ford is our premier, he has not led on this. Justin Trudeau is our prime minister, he has not led on this.
Okay.
Why are we hostages to the small minority of Canadians that have taken over downtown Ottawa? Do something.
There seems to be a different mindset and attitude amongst the counter-protesters, as you'll hear in this next interview with an Ottawa resident who does not disagree with the Freedom Rally, but wants people to wrap things up.
Rob, I've been speaking with you for a little bit. We're here at the counter protest. People are here to make their voices heard, to protest, and to let the convoy know maybe their thoughts. What would you say is kind of the message that they're hoping to get across?
The main message is to leave the residents of Centertown out of your battle with Justin Trudeau and the government. We are innocent people. There's families, there's seniors, children, and pets that are being tortured by noise. It's easy to say when you're sitting, 500 kilometers away, it's just a little bit of noise, but it's incessant and it's nonstop. It's impossible to live around it. People can handle it for a week or so, sure, they're not going to die, but it's absolutely cruel to subject it all day and all night. It sucks that it's come to this. I'm sorry that the country is this fractured. But all we're here to say is give us our streets back. Take your protest to Parliament Hill. That's it.
And to be clear, you're okay with them protesting, you just don't like how they're protesting.
100%. I will stand beside them for their right to protest. I would have stood beside them on Parliament Hill against mandates. I'm actually not a fan of mandates, but I am a fan of the rule of law and of democracy.
In the team's travels this week, they've come across many different Canadians uniting for the cause of freedom from mandates and restrictions. On Saturday, David had this encounter on the street, which we share with you now.
Hello, gentlemen. Tell me your names quickly.
Sunny Singh. Bobby Ray.
And where are you guys from?
I'm from England.
Mississauga, Ontario.
So why are you guys here today?
We're here for the freedom for everybody.
We're here to stand united as a country and say no more lockdowns and mandates.
What do you hope to see happen as a result of this?
We hope that Trudeau comes here and he stands with the people like a man and tells everybody, just like everybody, and says, okay, tell me what the problem is, let's correct it, let's be unified with love and peace. That's what Canada is for.
We have heard from mainstream medias, you guys have seen it on TV, even certain politicians and leaders of our country really driving racial tensions, categorizing this group as certain types of people. What have you seen in regards to those comments in this grouping?
If they come here, stand with us, they will see love, peace. They will see people hugging each other, people giving out free food. They'll see people giving hot tea in this cold weather.
Everybody's here with a good heart, compassion, and really want to come together and share solid and become a solid country. And really, there's a lot of compassion here. There's a lot of love. We're talking to the police officers here in Ottawa, very loving, compassionate people. It's just a beautiful atmosphere. There is no segregation. We were having a little joke where my friend and I were saying that, look, we're the white supremacist group. And people are just laughing because everybody knows that Canada is a loving and free country. And together, we will stand together and break through and make a difference for this country.
Well, it's good to see both sides sharing their thoughts on the Freedom Rally in Ottawa, and good, too, that everyone is keeping things peaceful in the capital city. Coming up next, the issues of the Freedom Rally have also caused contention amongst the Alberta population, including our provincial political leaders, and some are getting downright nasty with each other. Details after the break. Welcome back. Two local politicians went head-to-head this week in an online feud. Lethbridge West MLA Shannon Phillips spoke out against Lethbridge MP Rachel Thomas's stance on the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa following a post from Thomas saying she supports the truckers. In a post on Facebook, Phillips says Thomas is a disgrace to her office, adding that the MP just wants the pandemic to go on. Thomas was quick to respond, saying Phillips insists on perpetuating division and hate by painting a false narrative and using vile language to attack her. In a separate lengthy post on the MLA's Facebook page, Phillips wrote, quote, "It's clear to me that the #FluTrucks clan are unable to organize a protest, so let me help," adding that the truckers protesting should rally outside of her office downtown, but to also make a stop outside of Thomas's office as well. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney spoke about the situation at the Coots border crossing. He's calling on Ottawa and Washington to implement the exemption of truckers for once so that they don't need to be jabbed crossing the border. Kenney says he sympathizes with the truckers. He also says he hopes to lift a number of COVID restrictions by the end of February, adding that the key is seeing a sustained decrease of cases in our hospitals and that our healthcare system is not overwhelmed.
We need to continue to be careful and mindful of the nurses and doctors and other frontline healthcare workers who continue to operate under real stress. Now, we continue to monitor these numbers very closely. As I've said before, once we begin to see a sustained reduction in COVID pressure on the hospitals, I am looking forward to being able to make decisions about moving towards relaxation of public health measures at that time. And I believe that will happen this month in February. We need to see a sustained decline in hospitalization pressure, but with the overall trends, I am very optimistic.
Turning our attention now to the disruption this week within the Conservative Party of Canada and the ousting of its leader, Erin O'Toole. Manitoba MP Candice Bergen has been chosen to become the interim leader of the party. Bergen was the deputy leader of the Tories under O'Toole, who lost following a secret ballot where 73 of 118 MPs voted for a change in leadership. Lethbridge Conservative MP Rachel Thomas joined Hal Roberts from Ottawa to talk about the change.
Rachel, why do you think so many MPs wanted Erin O'Toole out as leader?
Well, Hal, I think ultimately our responsibility as members of Parliament is really to listen to the grassroots. And I think for a little while now, we've been receiving emails and telephone calls and having conversations with members who are a part of the Conservative movement, and they just have not been impressed with the leadership that Mr. O'Toole has offered.
So were you one of the 73 who voted for a change in leadership?
I did. Hal, I requested a change in leadership. I felt that was the will of my constituents, those that are a part of the Conservative Party of Canada in the constituency of Lethbridge, and so I felt that it was my responsibility to speak out on their behalf. And so I'm one of the 35 who signed the original letter, and I consequently did vote against keeping him as our leader.
So, Rachel, what kind of a leader does the party need now moving forward?
I think we need a leader who is going to unite caucus. We need to build bridges. One of our greatest strengths as a party is the fact that we are such a big tent party that covers the right side of the political spectrum. I personally feel that this is beautiful, that it is this amazing quality about conservatism that should be celebrated. As the Conservative Party of Canada, we have different viewpoints and we get to lean in and listen to those, and we get to, engage in robust discussion and try to persuade one another. And at the end of the day, sometimes we agree and sometimes we don't. And that's okay. But what matters is that we have one another's backs and that we gain a better understanding of the perspectives that exist within our caucus.
So let me ask you, will you be putting your name forward as a potential candidate now to lead the Conservative Party of Canada?
Hal, I will not be putting my name forward for leader.
But guess who is? On Saturday, Conservative MP Pierre Poilievre announced his bid for the Conservative Party leadership. After the break, what can Albertans expect in February? Will Jason Kenney make good on his promise to lift all restrictions? Well, that's next. Stay with us. Welcome back. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney was recently in the U.S. to increase trade opportunities between our province and certain states. Hal Roberts spoke with our legislative reporter and correspondent with the National Post about this, among other topics, like if Alberta will soon be restriction-free. Take a look.
Now, Tyler, our Premier was in the United States recently talking to some of the governors about the vaccine mandate for the truckers. I mean, it expired, but then it was implemented again by the feds. Where did it actually go when Kenney talked to the governors when it comes to the truckers and this vaccine mandate?
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to say. So he was down at sort of an annual general meeting of governors. He'd been talking on the phone, apparently, with some of the sort of border governors over the last couple weeks about this issue. And they'd said, why don't you come down and talk to some of us? So he told the media that he had, a number of sort of formal sit downs with governors. He didn't specify who, and then a number of other conversations just sort of on the, margins of this conference. It's a little bit unclear where it goes next. He did say that some of the governors said this was the sort of thing they were going to raise with the Biden administration, because of course the Biden administration has a similar rule. So it's not just a Canadian law or rule, it's also an American one. So, there's sort of two governments to deal with here. So it's hard to say what will come of that. But it is, as I sort of mentioned before, a sign that the Premier does sort of agree with at least this one portion of the protest movement and has actually been actively working to achieve what some of the protesters want.
Did Premier Kenney actually talk with the Biden administration while he was in Washington about the potential of bringing back Keystone XL?
I'm sure it came up in his conversations. I don't know if they've had any direct conversations with the Biden administration about it. We do have sort of a trade mission in Washington that I'm sure is doing some of this lobbying here and there. And honestly, and we haven't heard very much about it on the federal level either, which is maybe where you'd expect some of these sort of bilateral discussions to happen. It seems like for now, though, that the pipeline is sort of dead in the water. Of course, if anyone ever decides to start it up, I don't think the link up section that needs to be completed is all that big. So it probably wouldn't take, an enormous amount of effort to get the project restarted. But of course, it's in limbo, and there's they had to dismantle portions of it and all that. So it seems like, as far as I can tell, it's sort of an Energy East situation where the idea exists, but the project itself is pretty thoroughly scrapped.
What's interesting is how the Biden administration has been asking OPEC to increase output. It's like, hey, Canada, right here, your neighbors. We've got the oil that you guys need. We've got the fuels. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye on that. Now, Tyler, Premier Kenney says by the end of this month, Alberta will begin dropping some of the COVID-19 related public health measures, including the vaccine passport system.
Yeah, it's a little bit confusing, I have to say, because a few days ago he said by the end of March, and then on Tuesday he said sort of end of February. So let's say, generously timeline anywhere from the next 4 to 8 weeks, perhaps we might see the relaxation of some of these things. And the vaccine passport, as you say, did get a specific mention there. So the metrics aren't there yet. Hospitalization rates are still at sort of record highs. We're not through this yet, even if it perhaps feels like it for a lot of people. So nothing sort of imminent. And he was really pressed by some reporters on Tuesday about a roadmap. When is this going to happen? What is it going to look like? What are the benchmarks? And he did promise that was coming, but no, straightforward, explicit announcement of those things. And the other thing to keep in mind, of course, is that this is going to become a major political issue for him when he decides to do that. Obviously his supporters are probably going to like it. The New Democrats are going to be, screaming bloody murder about it. So once the legislature is back in session, everyone's, shouting at each other in question period. I have no doubt we're going to hear an awful lot about this in the weeks and months to come.
Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe was talking about it's not a matter of if, but when they're going to lift all of the mandates as well here and try and get back to normal. Moe was saying that this is COVID, it's just something we're going to have to learn to live with. Is that kind of the same mindset with Premier Jason Kenney in the UCP?
I think that's probably fair to say. That was one of the things that they tried to do back in August, I guess it would have been, trying to move from this pandemic to endemic management. And then, of course, the whole thing was sidelined by the Delta wave, and the plan was sort of, I don't want to say scrapped, but sidelined for the time being. But certainly I think that's the way it's going. And it's not just Saskatchewan that's looked at opening up. Ontario opened up some of its facilities, bars and restaurants, I think, that have been closed for a considerable period of time. Earlier this week, Monday, I think. I've been thinking about this a lot, Hal, and so I'll maybe just mention it. It's very interesting because Alberta's oddly had it easier than almost everywhere else in the country in terms of restrictions. And it doesn't feel like that, I think, for a lot of people, but it's when you look at Ontario and Quebec, it's just a completely different world,
When we return from the break, we share our top local stories from the past week. If you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for all of our latest videos. And please follow Bridge City News on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Welcome back to Bridge City News. As in many other Canadian cities, citizens of Lethbridge gathered this week to express their desire to have all COVID restrictions and mandates lifted immediately. A convoy of vehicles was staged in the parking lot of Superstore on Mayor McGrath Drive. One of the promoters behind the event, Larry Shilley, says he hopes this rally gets the attention of our local politicians.
I'd like to see local politicians get a backbone. I believe Rachel Thomas has stood up for the rights of Canadians and the right to protest and supported this movement. I'm not sure about our UPC candidates. They've been pretty quiet, but I think they need to get a backbone. The party's over. Time to move on.
My dad was a Second World War vet. He served with the Grey and Simcoe Foresters out of Ontario, and he fought for these rights and freedoms, and that Charter of Rights is there for a reason, and that's to protect us and all people, all Canadians, right? And he would have been severely disappointed, let's say that.
According to police, that convoy then moved slowly down Mayor McGrath Drive to 16th Avenue South and along Scenic Drive and Crow's Nest Trail. A checkpoint blockade on Highway 4 leading to the busiest border crossing in Alberta appears to be growing. Protesters have cleared one lane in each direction to allow cross-border traffic to get through, but at least 80 rigs remain along the highway in Coutts in the protests against COVID-19 restrictions. They were joined by dozens of trucks, farm equipment, SUVs, and even horses sporting Canadian flags. Coutts Mayor Jim Willett has met with some of the protesters and says that they're not as bad as some people have said, but he says they're taking away from the freedom of the people in the community and costing the economy millions of dollars. The Freedom Convoy is having an effect on people of all ages, including high school students. On Friday, students at Lethbridge Collegiate Institute walked out of classes to hold signs in objection to mandates and restrictions and to show their support for the larger scale protests taking place across our country.
I'm doing this so that everyone here can get like their voices heard. This isn't anti-mask, this is pro-choice. If you want to wear a mask and get vaccinated, I 100% support you. And anyone who doesn't and is getting forced into it, I think is disgusting, and we should all get the choice to choose for ourselves.
I'm one of the supporters of the truckers, as well as a couple of my friends here, and I think it's really great kind of just that we're a small group, but we're here for everybody that wants to do what we want to do. And if you want to get vaccinated, if you want to wear a mask, then that's you, go you. I'm not going to be against you. That's your choice, but again, it's my choice not to.
It sure was windy out there that day. Well, RCMP continued to investigate a fatal motor vehicle collision that happened shortly before 8 a.m. Friday. Picture Butte RCMP responded to the scene on Highway 25, just south of Diamond City. According to police, a car traveling eastbound on Highway 25 collided with a westbound SUV. The male driver of the car and lone occupant was pronounced deceased at the scene. The lone driver of the SUV has been transported to hospital with what are reported as non-life-threatening injuries. Icy road conditions are believed to have been contributed to the collision. It's been exactly 103 days since Blaine Higgin was elected as mayor of Lethbridge. Since being sworn in, Higgin says it's been a great honor and privilege to serve as mayor. He says the biggest accomplishment so far has been creating the Gateway to Opportunity 2022 action plan with the help of council.
Everything we seem to discuss on a regular basis falls back into that action plan, and it's great. So we try to fit any questions or any comments or concerns or suggestions that come in from the community. We take those and how does it fit in with that action plan, and all of it does. And so it's, I think, sitting together and working out that action plan, and it took a long time. We were thinking maybe we'd have it out in early December, later in December, and then finally in January we brought that out. It's we wanted to make sure that it was the best that we could put out there.
A Medicine Hat barber is giving the gift of fresh buzz cuts to the truckers in Ottawa. Calvin Isaac Malton, owner of Isaac Barbershop, will be heading to our nation's capital, where he plans to give haircuts to anyone in the Freedom Convoy who needs one or wants one. Malton says he supports what the truckers are doing.
I believe in democracy, freedom, and all-encompassing facts and science that illustrates duality between our nation.
There will be more Bridge City news after the break when we return with my interview with a Lethbridge County Reeve.